Hey, I finished another book, and I just wanted to just talk about it a bit. So the book I finished is Thomas Paine's Age of Reason. I picked it up at a secondhand store for like $5. I think it's really cool. The book, the copyright of his work is 1794. Oh my gosh. So the knowledge in here is like 230 years old. Oh my gosh. And then the copyright of the physical book that I read was 1942. So just the book itself is 82 years old. Oh my goodness. It is in great shape too. This is something that I definitely want to. Oh, my bookmark's still in it. I don't want to make creases and stuff in it. It's a beautiful book. It's just a blue. I'll take a picture of it for you. It's just a blue book with the title on the spine. Oh, it's beautiful. It smells good too. So Thomas Paine. I'm going to read this directly from Wikipedia. Thomas Paine was an English-born American founding father, French revolutionary, political activist, philosopher, political theorist, and revolutionary. He authored Common Sense, The American Crisis. I've not read either of them, but they are both on my list to read. He authored the two most influential pamphlets at the start of the American Revolution. Two of the most influential pamphlets at the start of the American Revolution, and he helped to inspire the colonial era patriots in 1776 to declare independence from Great Britain. The man was brilliant. Most of the books I read are they provide great discussions and ideas, but many of the books also need to be read by the individual. So, like, although I can talk about this a lot of the ideas that he instills in you should be ideas that you come up with yourself and instead are not told to you by, like, me. So I highly encourage you to read this. I will say it's not very long. The one I have is printed fairly large, and it has 256 pages, though it is a very difficult read, not only because you'll be pausing a lot just to think about what he's saying, but because he uses a lot of verbose language. And in my book, I have a little book of where I write quotes and words down that I like. I just have like multiple pages of just words that I didn't know what they were. I had to look them up. And at the end of this video, I'm going to read some of them to you that I thought were my favorites, because they're really good, and I really want to incorporate them into my language because they're fun. Anyways, yeah. So it's difficult, and as I was reading this, a personal goal of mine is to get better at diction and pronunciation, or enunciating my language, as well as having a better flow to my sentences and to my speaking. So I read this whole book out loud, and my goodness, it was difficult. It was very difficult. But I encourage you to try it as well. Though do it somewhere where people won't judge you, because I don't know about you, but I stumbled over so many words. The hardest one for me in this book was, the words are hard, the names are hard. Like, this is Jehoshaphat. That's a pretty difficult one. Nebuchadnezzar. People know that one. There's some that were just like, I couldn't even try. I didn't write any of them down, but if you read it, you'll know. And then the word that always caught me, and he uses it a lot, is necessity. It's not like a difficult word or anything. It's just, I just have a lot of I just struggle to pronounce it. Necessity. No, that's not right. It wasn't that. What was it? Oh, I know what it was. I'm struggling already. Authenticity. No, that's not right. Authenticity. That's it. Authenticity. I don't, it's a tough word for me. Authenticity. So let's see. Thomas Paine was in France at the time he wrote his first part to The Age of Reason. Paine accompanied Colonel John Laurens to France and is credited with initiating the mission. It landed in France in March 1781 and returned to America in August. Blah, blah, blah. The meetings with the French king were most likely conducted in the company and under the influence of Benjamin Franklin. Upon returning to the United States with his highly welcomed cargo, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I want, though. Thomas Paine. Oops, not rents. French Revolution. Thomas Paine, the most widely read political thinker in the late 18th century, played a notable role in the American Revolution. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, we know that. Here we go. Paine did not become directly involved in the French Revolution until June 1971, where Louis the 16th's flight to Versailles led him to call for the abolition of monarchy. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Paine served on the committee chosen by the convention to draft a new French constitution, but there is no surviving evidence of any contribution that he made in these discussions. Oh, that's a shame. He continued his attacks on the monarchy and supported the creation of a French republic. These contributions were generally well received, but more controversial was his views on the trial of Louis XVI and the punishment to inflict on him. He was convinced that the king should be found guilty, but opposed his execution, preferring to see him imprisoned and then banished when peace was achieved. Cool. While he was, that was, I need to cite my source. That was a excerpt from Thomas Paine and the French Revolution by Karine Lucini, and the website I got it was Reviews in History, and the reviewer was Professor Harry T. Dickinson. Cool. During his time in France, he was under investigation by the monarchy and stuff, and he was eventually imprisoned for a bit. So he knew a bunch of this stuff was coming and stuff was going to happen. So he desperately got a pen and paper, probably not a pen, but you know what I mean. He got a pen and paper and he wrote down his first part in The Age of Reason. And he really wanted to. He knew the adage that those who forget history oft repeat it. And he was so concerned that something like this would happen again, specifically since he's an American and came from the newly formed country. He wanted to educate his own peoples of both educate and caution, both educate and caution his peoples of the going-ons in France and the reasonings that the revolution was going on. So he wrote all this stuff down. He sent it off as fast as he could. In his rush, he even says this in the book, he wasn't able to. Everything that he wrote was from memory. Everything that all the examples and all the bits and pieces of Everything he wrote was from memory. So when he talks about the Bible and stuff, it's he doesn't have a physical copy with him, but he remedies that in part 2, which is basically where he shows all his work. He goes through the Bible and he pulls out passages and he pulls out examples of the issues he takes with it. I suppose now is a good time as any to explain that the book, The Age of Reason, is a scathing deconstruction, exposure, and repudiation of the quote-unquote Word of God, or the Bible. Thomas Paine himself is a staunch believer in God, and he says in the very beginning of his book, he's very clear on this. He says that many good men have believed this strange fable and have lived very good lives under that belief, for credulity is not a crime. What I have no doubt of, in the first place, they were educated to believe it, and they would have believed anything else is the same matter. There are also many who have been so enthusiastically enraptured by what they conceive to be the infinite love of God to man, in making a sacrifice himself, that the vehemence of the idea has forbidden and deterred them from examining into the absurdity and profaneness of the story. As you can already tell, he is quite the writer. He has quite the arsenal of words at his disposal. I am very envious of this man. Exceptional. Anyways, so he believes in God, but he does not believe in the Bible. And this whole book is kind of his reasoning on why that is. And kind of encouraging people to think for themselves. And although he wants them to believe in God, because he believes in God, but he wants them to take their, not Samuel, let me look it up. 1 Peter 3:15, do not fear their threats, do not be frightened, but in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. I forgot. I've taken like 10 minutes to find this, and I forgot what the point was. So the point of that was to soften the blow of the shock of having your core beliefs challenged. And he follows this up with professing his own belief. I'll read it to you. I believe in one God and no more, and I have hope for happiness beyond this life. I believe in the equality of man, and I believe that religious duties consist in doing justice, loving mercy, and endeavoring to make our fellow creatures happy. That's nice. That's a nice way to put it. He's not really concerned with the people of belief in God, because he's already speaking to, so the majority of the world at this point has some sort of belief in God, specifically the Abrahamic God. Because of this, he's less concerned that people believe in God, because that's the consensus right now, but he's rather concerned with the perspectives and fluid interpretations that can be drawn from religious text, leading to extremism and zealotry, specifically with the Bible. That's his focus right now, probably because that's the book that he's brought up with. He cautions his fellow man to exercise critical reasoning in all aspects of life, particularly when judging a fellow man's extraordinary claims. This is important because Thomas Paine claims that the Bible is an extraordinary claim by man. And the whole Age of Reason is his, I'll say attempt, because whether you believe it or agree with him or not is up to the reader, right? So the Age of Reason is his attempt to, what's the word? Is his attempt to conceptualize and explain his reasonings. So he despises What? He despises. I think, is this my quote? He despises the choices of gift. Let me look. That doesn't sound quite right. It's missing a bit because it's, yeah, that's right. So this quote here is chopped up a little bit. So start quote. He despises the choicest gift of God to man, the gift of reason. Ungratefully calls it human reason, as if man could give reason to himself. So he's basically saying, God gives us reason, and with this reason, we should use it to determine what God himself has given to his children, right? Or his flock, or whatever you want to call it. And through this, he's using the gift of reason that God has given him to determine that the Bible is the work of man, and he encourages his fellow men to disavow it. Yeah, I like that. And that's the purpose of his work. That is the purpose of this work, to demonstrate that the Bible is nothing more than the work of man, masquerading with the seal of God. Here's another quote. It is a book of lies, wickedness, and blasphemy. For what can be greater blasphemy than to ascribe the wickedness of man to the orders of the Almighty? That's a pretty good quote. And you can see he despises the Bible. Most likely because of or most prominently, he despises the Bible. Period. Currently, his heightened emotional state, and which is reflected in his words, specifically, this is all from part 1. So his heightened emotional state, which is reflected in his words, can be traced to the fact that he is currently under investigation and potentially to be held as a revolutionary, which he is, and to be put to death in France. Like the monarchy is looking directly at him and saying, we are going to kill you. Which, although his words are harsh, I can understand why that's the case. And I want to read the preamble to you. The book is upside down. I want to read the preamble to you. Because this really does explain his intention. To my fellow citizens of the United States of America, I put the following work under your protection. It contains my opinion upon religion. You will do me the justice to remember that I have always, strenuously. You will do me the justice to remember that I have always strenuously supported the right of every man to his opinion, however different that opinion might be to mine. He who denies to another this right makes a slave of himself to his present opinion, because he precludes himself the right of changing it. The most formidable weapon against the errors of every kind is reason. I have never used any other, and I trust I never shall. Your affectionate friend and fellow citizen, Thomas Paine. What a way to start the book. He makes it very clear that everything wow, that's just so good. I don't even think I need to explain that. Like, wow. I love that. I'm getting excited again. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wait. So the book is broken into 2 parts. One written during his stay in France during the French Revolution, and he makes note that says he does not have access to a Bible, and he is fearing that he may not make it back to America, so he may die in France. And he wants these ideas to be spread and at least considered within America. He knows the adage that history oft repeats itself, and he fears that a similar instance may happen in the future, specifically in America, because that's, of course, where he's from, but also within the rest of the world. And so he as I just read, he addresses it to the American people. And he wants to get in ahead of any future conflict stemming from a similar zealotry, and in this case, persecution of the religious sect. Is that right? Again, I'm not very familiar with the French Revolution. I know that they killed quite a few people, and that I'm not very familiar with the French Revolution. I'm sorry. I apologize. Oh, here we go. Look at this. I planned for this. As said in the Institute of World Politics article, La Constitution Chevelle du Clergé, the Civil Constitution of the Clergy, was passed on July 12, 1790, that resulted in the immediately subordination of the Catholic Church in France to the French government. It proved to be one of the most ill-judged, controversial, and disruptive laws of the French Revolution. The attempt to restructure the Church during the time of the National Convention turned to open aggression against the Catholic. So hard. Turned into open aggression against Catholicism and religion in general. Religious practice was outlawed and replaced with the cult of the supreme being, a deist-stated religion. The program of dechristianization waged against the Christian people of France increased in intensity with the enactment of the law of September 1793, also known as the Law of Suspects. It used to carry out more actively the following measures. 1. All priests and all persons protecting them are liable to death on the spot. 2. The destruction of all crosses, bells, and other external signs of worship. 3. The destruction of statues, plaques. 3. The destruction of statues, plaques, and iconography from places of worship. In 1793, the Christian calendar was replaced by one reckoning from the date of the Revolution, and the festivals of liberty, reason, and the supreme being were officially established. Okay, so that's what happened in France. The first part of the Age of Reason is where most of the meat is. So if you're looking to give it a read, I would encourage you at least reading part 1. It's 92 pages. It's not that difficult. It is a lot to take in because he covers a lot in those 92 pages. But if you like to think, give it a read. It's excellent. So, with that out of the way, I want to read you a few patches. I want to read you a few passages and think about them together. And let me find my book. I want to start off by, this one's going to be a bit long, but I want to start off by once again, oh my gosh, I want to start off by once again offering his reasonings for writing The Age of Reason. I've already read through the preamble, but the first few paragraphs really rounds out his intention behind this book. So here we go. It has been my intention for several years past to publish my thoughts upon religion. I am well aware of the different... Oh my god, this is so hard to read. It has been my intention for several years past to publish my thoughts upon religion. I am well aware of the difficulties that attend the subject, and from that consideration, I reserved it to a more advanced period of life. I intended it to be the last offering I should make to my fellow citizens of all nations, and that at a time when the purity of the motive that induced me to it could not admit of a question even by those who might disapprove of the work. The circumstance that has now taken place in France, the total abolition of the whole national order of the priesthood and of everything appertaining to compulsive systems of religion and compulsive articles of faith, has not only precipitated my intention, but rendered a work of this kind exceedingly necessary. lest in the general wreck of superstition, of false systems of government and false theology, we lose sight of morality, of humanity, and of the theology that is true. As several of my colleagues and others of my fellow citizens of France have given me the example of making their voluntary and individual profession of faith, I will also make mine, and I will do this with the sincerity and frankness with which the mind of man communicates with itself. In the preamble, he discusses. Let me open the book. Nope, too far. When discussing opinions, this is the preamble. So when discussing opinions, he says, "He who denies to another this right makes a slave of himself to his present opinion, because he precludes himself the right of changing it." I love that. The fact that you're unwilling to change your opinion enslaves you to it. Ah. It's like, there's a saying going around. I want to believe, what is it? I want to believe as many true things as possible. Something like that. And this quote from 1794 already discusses this, and already has, like, that's so crazy that these things that we continuously are continuously brought up, people who are so stubborn into even considering the fact that they either could be wrong or that new evidence could arise. It was being discussed in 1794, and I believe, or I'm certain that it was not new in 1794, that Thomas Paine was just restating an idea. And yet it's still something that humanity struggles with. How do you fix that? How do you explain that to someone? And it goes both ways. One person who believes, let's say I believe in an opinion so much that I refuse to change it, and somebody believes the opposite, we both are beholden, or as Thomas Paine would say, we're both enslaved to those opinions. It goes both ways. Oh, I love that. It's a great way to think. It teaches humility and mental fluidity. I like that word. It teaches humility and mental fluidity of your thoughts. The willingness to admit, as Thomas Paine said, credulity, though not of your fault, not of your own fault, but perhaps by your upbringing or even false information. And today, in the information age, that's even. Sometimes I wish there were people like Thomas Paine alive today. Thomas Paine, because they would have a field day with today's climate of free information for everyone. Maybe they do exist. Maybe they're just drowned out, since everybody can express their thoughts and opinions. I wonder. I've never thought so. So think about, like, if everybody can say their opinions. If you look at the bell curve of how do I want to say this? The bell curve of human intelligence, I guess. So, like, you have your average person in the middle. The bell curve goes to the sides. The large majority of content that you see online or in papers and books is smack dab in the middle, right? So the people like Thomas Paine would be little tail end to the right, but you don't really get to see that very often, because what you get flooded with, specifically with all the algorithms and shit, running YouTube, running Twitter, running Facebook, is all that big stuff right in the middle. So a person like Thomas Paine could be living today. We just don't know it. That's tough. Oh, that's tough. This one's good too. So Thomas is when somebody's trying to convince you of something, and they let's say they tell you a story like, I need a name, Julie. Julie wanted cookies for dessert. Like if I told you that, that'd be hearsay, right? Because it's not coming from Julie. Julie doesn't tell you she wants cookies. I'm saying that Julie wants cookies. And likewise, he says, it is revelation to the first person only, and hearsay to every other. So likewise, if God were to tell Thomas that he exists, and Thomas were to tell me, it is incumbent on Thomas to provide sufficient evidence of that fact. Otherwise, or regardless, if he provides evidence or not, it is still hearsay. And essentially, revelation is necessary to believe in God. Thomas believes he has that revelation, as have tons of people who exist today and have existed in the past. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy cool. It's quite funny. He says the deification of heroes, so thinking about Hercules, thinking about not only heroes. He's more specific than just heroes, but and give me some Greek heroes: Hercules, Perseus, Odysseus, and likewise gods. So like Aphrodite, Athena, Poseidon. So he says the deification of heroes changed into the canonization of saints. So essentially, what he's saying is that the monolithic religions, they have their one God, but their multitude of saints. They have saints of healing, of bloodletting, of, just take your pick, right? There's saints all over the place. And he basically says that the structure is that of the one God, or Zeus, and Zeus's underlings, but instead of the underlings being called gods, they're called saints. And the underling of Zeus's gods are called heroes, so like Zeus's son Hercules. Instead of God having a son, it would be God's saints. Does that make sense? It's simply putting in perspective that the collection, humanity has collected previous. No, that's not right. It's that humanity retains the same structure of gods, just with different names. They've just categorized them. Or, here we go, canonization. Canonized? I don't know. Categorize them differently. Oh, that's cool. That's an interesting thought. I like that. He also dislikes the church. He believes that the church has been basically conning its followers out of money and whatnot. He says it has set up a religion of pomp and revenue, in pretend imitation of a person who chose life, it has set up a religion of pomp and revenue, in pretend imitation of a person whose life was humility and poverty. Referencing here that Jesus Christ, who believed in loving man, loving his fellow men, humans, whatever, loving his fellow people. So what he's talking about, oh, so cool again. The church, not necessarily Catholic, but just the church, demands tithes. It demands followers. What is the word for followers? demands accordance? No, it demands systematic practices. There's dogmatry. Demands you follow them, right? What he's saying is that they're hypocrites. He's saying that the church preaches Jesus Christ and his humility and poverty and his love of his fellow man, and yet it places specific men like popes and clergymen on a higher pedestal than the rest of us. Most importantly, it demands money. Money needs money. When Jesus Christ preached specifically that poverty was not a crime, nor something to be ashamed of, something to be treated with kindness, or the people who are in poverty to be treated with kindness. I like that. This was a good one. The Hag of Superstition. The Hag. I just love the image that comes to mind. You can really tell that he despises superstition. The Hag of Superstition. I love that. Learning does not consist in the knowledge of languages. No, that doesn't matter. I just thought that was neat. This was good. That shocks the mind of a child cannot be a true system. He's displeased with the illustration and explanation of hell and the threat of violence and eternal torture as taught to children. He believes that anything that would purposely induce fear, horror, and shock to be a false system. I love that. Told in terms that could be understood and not related in such a loose and obscene, I can't read my handwriting, loose and obscure manner. So basically this is going back to the fluid interpretations of the text that leads to zealots on one side and moderates on the other. This is with any religious text. He believes that any truth as passed down by God would be factual and indisputable. He believes, I should explain this, he believes that God himself is, that the scripture of God is not in the books, is not in the Bible, is not in the Quran, but rather in nature itself. So he looks at the transit of the planets around the sun. He looks at how perfect it is, how they all work. He looks at the fact that everything is running in sync, everything is running together, that Mars, Venus, Jupiter, all their moons. Oh my gosh. Ouch. All their moons, all their ellipses, they all work flawlessly. He believes that is the proof of God in the blood that flows through our veins, that our bodies work, that our eyes can see, that our mouths can speak, our tongues can taste, our ears can hear, all sorts of honestly, it's just miraculous is a great word to use, because it really is amazing. And he believes that science, through all of that, we call that science, right? And that science is the Word of God. And that, true to science, anyone can look upon a flower, anyone can look upon the transit of objects in the sky, and they all draw the same conclusion. And all of that, everything, all of that is the Word of God. Very poetic, very whether you agree with him or not, it is a beautiful thought. A lot of people say, if you burned, let's say math, if you burned every bit of math knowledge to the ground where nothing was left, it all would come back because it's unchanging. It is true. Sure, the symbols might change. Sure, the techniques may change, but the answers, the reasonings, the proofs will all remain the same. And Thomas believes that is the Word of God. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it. Oh, here's a good one. So he was, I think I said earlier, he was against the execution of the French king, the French monarch. And here he makes it a little, he clears that up a little bit. He says, it is not because right principles have been violated that they are to be abandoned. Ooh, that's good. That's good. I don't really like, no. I shouldn't preface this. I should just say it. Because it draws directly to this. So capital punishment is something that's always brought back up. I always thought about that. I believe Thomas Paine would believe that. I believe Thomas Paine would agree with me. My neighbor is home. I believe Thomas Paine would agree with me in saying that capital punishment is violating right principles. Specifically, we'll use murder, for instance. If somebody murdered someone, the right principle is not murdering someone. That's why murdering is bad, right? Because we've determined it to be a right principle. I'm simplifying this a lot. And yet returning murder upon the murderer would be to abandon that principle of which society has deemed right. I put it a different way. I put it this way. When thinking of capital punishment, we as a society have determined that murder is wrong, and so we as a society have determined to murder you. That it's irony, right? It's philosophical irony. That is the reason I would argue that capital punishment is wrong, because or in Thomas Paine's words, right principles have been violated, and yet we must not abandon them ourselves. Oh, that's good. I think mine was a bit catchy either way. That's good. Oh, here's one. This goes back to the preamble where we are slaves to our own opinion. Each understands it differently, but each understands it best. Oh, that's good. That's real good. Oh, he also talks about, so this now my, okay, so he also talks about, I am now in part 2 with my little book, where he's doing all sorts of, he's drawing the conclusion that the Bible is the work of man. That's the whole point. He makes a claim that the book of Job carries no internal evidence of being a Hebrew book. It has been translated from another language into Hebrew, and the author was a Gentile. The astronomical names of Pleiades, Orion, and Arcturus are Greek and not Hebrew. So he basically makes a claim that the entire book of Job is not a Hebrew work, that it was taken from the Gentiles. And in his in the Age of Reason, he explains it brilliantly on why he believes that. I just thought it was cool. I'm not a Bible scholar, obviously, but the reasons he gives as a layman, I tend to kind of agree. But once again, to, as he says in the beginning, to refrain from making myself a slave to this opinion, I have to be willing, and I have to be cognizant of the fact that I have not heard the counter argument. Right? I've only listened to the one side. So at the moment, I tentatively hold the position of agreeing with Thomas. But it is now incumbent on, well, if I were to go preach this stuff, it would be incumbent on me to know I guess my opinion of this would be, it would be incumbent on me to know, understand, and refute the counter arguments, so I'd have to seek them out. But as of right now, since I have no intention of doing that and instead just wish to discuss it, it would be incumbent on another to formulate arguments and present them, maybe not directly to me, but in a forum somewhere where I could easily access it. Hence the information age we are now in. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, he also this is interesting. The character represented under the name Satan, which is the first and only time this name is mentioned in the Bible, is in Job, and he makes the argument that Satan, as a name, is a Gentile idea and not a Hebrew, and not a that's so weird. Once again, I don't know enough about the Bible to refute that. Especially since his argument that Job is a Gentile work is speculative, although he brings evidence that it is. The validity of that claim cannot be definitively stated as being truly Gentile or truly Hebrew. Very cool. And he's violently, just to show how much he despises this, he says, the Jews never prayed but when they were in trouble, and never for anything but victory, vengeance, and riches. Once again, I don't know the Bible enough, but that's a big accusation. This is a good one for it's a good quote to live by. This is something that honestly, this is one of the reasons I kind of started this channel. It is impossible to derive happiness from the company of those who we deprive of happiness. I love that. Part of the reason I started the channel was to provide happiness to other people, and hopefully through their happiness find happiness myself. And I honestly have this. This is a joy to make videos and audios and stuff. But it's also a cautionary quote that if somebody is deriving happiness from your deprivation of happiness, the most obvious tangent we can draw from this is domestic abuse, right? And of course, as easy it is to draw that connection, it's not as easy as, what is that sound? It's not as easy for the individuals caught up in the loop to A, recognize it, or B, break it. There's a plane going overhead. Here's a good one. So he's more of encouraging his readers to be cognizant of potential dishonesty within works. He says, the agreement of all the parts of a story does not prove that the story to be true. the parts may agree and the whole be false. Secondly, that the disagreement of the parts of a story proves the whole cannot be true. The agreement does not prove true, but the disagreement proves falsehood positively. This one is, you have to be meticulous with this one. Right? And you have to be careful because somebody might make a mistake. But is that mistake intentional? Was it the intention to deceive? Or was it accidental? So I would say that the intention to deceive or mislead or misinform would be evil or a lie or something. And yet the result, either accidental either accidental or intentional, they both lead to kind of the same point. Oh, that's nice. What a thought. Like I said, most of part 2 is just kind of showing his work. He's very particular. He does not use any other source than the Bible because he wants to prove that the Bible itself refutes itself. That the true word of God is within the world, that man can see with his very eyes, and that he can derive from, of course, the study of planets. Thomas Paine, I believe, was an astronomer. Is that right? Astronomer? The scientific version. I get them mixed up. Not the Libra stuff, the other one. Here he kind of, so at the end he kind of sums up what he speaks of. He has a conclusion at the end. And this very much summates his entirety of part 2. When it is revealed to me, I will believe it to be a revelation. But it is not and cannot be incumbent upon me to believe it to be a revelation before. Neither is it proper that I take the word of man as the word of God, and put man in the place of God. So the obvious claim is that the book, the Bible, is claiming to be the word of God. And yet we know for a fact, this is indisputable, Bible scholars would agree with this, that it was written by man. Even like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Even they're men, right? They wrote it down. Well, it's arguing whether they did or not. Sure, it's most likely they didn't. But regardless, it is written by man. And to recognize this is to recognize that taking their works as the word of God is equivalent to setting up the people who wrote it as God. Well, that's interesting. That makes it really difficult then to not necessarily to profess your belief, because you can believe anything. And the requisite for belief is fairly low. Like I can believe, I don't need an example. You know what I mean? The requisite belief for belief is fairly low. But to prove it, I wish more people took the time and care to think about their own beliefs before spreading information. Not even information, just spreading ideas. It's frustrating that doesn't have to be with religion or God or any of that. Just anything. It's frustrating that it's not more prevalent in society. Oh, is there more? No, that's the end. Just read it. It's so good. Just reading it, even just as practice for learning new words and speaking is valuable. God, what a book. What a book. Hey, this is editing Autumn. Just wanted to give you a forewarning. The next 30 minutes is me just rambling about words. So, yeah. I want to read some words for you now, though. I hope to use them. Where does it start? Quibble. I love that word. It's not. Some of the words I wrote down aren't exactly like. I knew what quibble meant, but I just really like the word, you know? I really want to use it. I'll give you some definitions, though. Quibble. A slight objection or criticism about a trivial matter. I like that. Makes me want to do role plays of quibbles. Because I think it's cute to argue over nothing. I do it with my friends all the time. Interlarded. Interlard or interlarded. Intersperse or embellish speech or writing with different material. Impertinent. Come on. Impertinent. Not showing proper respect or rude if you're impertinent. I think I knew that one too. But still a good word. Parasitism. I really like it. So parasitism is Paroxysm. Parasitism. It means a sudden attack or violent expression of a particular emotion or activity. Now that's a cool word. Not just alone because of how cool it's spelled. XYSM. How many words do you know that end in XYSM? Parasitism. Munificence. That one's fun to say. Munificence. Very liberal in giving or bestowing. Munificence. Interregnum. That's a fun one. Oh my god, come on, work. Interregnum means a period which normal government is suspended, especially between successive reigns or regimes. Interregnum. Antipodes. Oh, that one's fun too. Antipodes. The parts of the Earth opposite each other at a distance of the Earth's diameter. That word, I don't even know how I would use that word. Antipodes. That's a cool word, though. Fluvia. This one's funny. Effluvia. Oh, unpleasant or harmful odor, secretion, or discharge. That's so gross. Effluvia. And yet there's a word for it. I love that. Would effluviate be the verb? So if I were to toot, it would be I would to effluviate. I love that. Whit. Not wit, whit. A very small part or amount. Okay. Whit. No, that's jot or tittle. Whit. Not, that's so interesting. Because we know wit, W-I-T. Whit. Very small change. Meaning the word entirely changes. Whit. I would have to use that. Whit. I put a whit of salt in my porridge. Would that work? The sentence is, the last whit of warmth was drawn off by the setting sun. Whit. I think that would work. Ledge. How do you say this? Legerdemain. Skillful use of one's hands when performing conjuring tricks. Legerdemain. So like magicians, they prefer sleight of hand, but they also perform legerdemain. I have to say that word is far more interesting than sleight of hand. Legerdemain. I like that. Conscientious. Just a word I want to use more. Intimation. An indication or hint. Intimation. It's the... Is that verb? Is that the verb? No, it's a noun. Intimation. I guess I intimated. I gave an intimation. Would intimated work? Yeah, intimated is a verb. But gave an intimation would work too. That's nice. Intimation. I could do an RP where I intimate my love or something. Can you hear my computer? It's like taking off like an airplane. Aired. That's another one that I knew. E-R-R-E-D, aired. It's just like you erred from caution. Let's look up the technical definition. Aired. To err, E-R-R. Oh, that's cool. 3 letters. Error. To be mistaken or incorrect. Make a mistake. Error. Error. You made an error. Erred is the past tense. To err. To err. Oh, I love that. To err. You made a mistake. To err. Anathematized. Oh, what a word. That's a mouthful. Anathema. Something or someone that vehemently dislikes. Anathema. Anathematized. Coxcomb, that one's cool. C-O-X. C-O-M-B. C-O-M-B. Coxcomb. No, that's not right. Oh, here we go. A vain or conceited man. A dandy. A variant spelling of coxcomb. Oh, so coxcomb is a plant. But coxcomb, C-O-X, instead of C-O-C-K. C-O-C-K-S comb is the plant. C-O-X, C-O-M-B. Coxcomb is a vain and conceited person. Individual. Coxcomb. I like that one. Coxcomb. Harong. That doesn't even sound English. Harong. N-G-U-E. Harong. A lengthy and aggressive speech. Harong. You could say the political speeches from both Biden and Trump are harangues. Harong. That's a good word. Sepulcher. I knew that one. It's just like a small building. And how Thomas Paine uses it is the sepulcher of the tomb where Jesus was laid. Sepulcher. Calumny. Antecedent. Antecedent. I like that one. And I say that every time, but that's why I wrote them down, because I like them. I don't know why I keep saying that. Antecedent. A thing or event that existed before or logically precedes another. That one's hard. Thing or event that existed before or logically precedes another. Antecedent. I don't even know how to use that word. Some antecedents to the African novel might exist in Africa's oral traditions. Is the example. Antecedents. Yeah, I guess. I don't know if I could ever use that word, though. It's such a specific word. Antecedents. Calumny. Oh, calumny. Excuse me. Calumny. That's a funny one, too. C-A-L-U-M-N-Y. Calumny. The making of false and defamatory statements about someone in order to damage their reputation. Otherwise, slander. So slander would be the statements, but calumny would be so, like, let's say if I were to go and publicly say that my sister, what's a good example? Like a false and defamatory? I'm trying to think of something to defame, something fake to defame my sister with. It's not very harmful. Oh, here we go. So if I were to, so the act of me saying, maybe not the act, but me saying that my sister likes pineapple on pizza could be calumny. Putting pineapple on pizza could be considered slander, and me saying, no, not me saying, because that would be the verb. So me, I'm not great with that. Would calumny, could it describe a verb? So maybe me saying that, yeah, that would be right then. Me saying my sister likes pineapple on pizza would be calumny, or could be considered calumny. I don't actually know if she likes pineapple. I like pineapple on pizza though. I'm skipping a lot because there's so many good words that I wrote down, but oh, nosed. No, noised or nosed? This one's funny. Noise. Noised would be the past tense. And past participle. Oh yeah, whatever. So noise. To talk or make known publicly. I didn't know it could be used that way. I just thought it was sounds. I made noise. But if I were to speak about pineapple on pizza, I would have been making noise. Oh, maybe? I guess we still technically use it in that. We still technically use it in this instance today. I was under the impression that it was just verbal, just sound. But noise, talk about or make known publicly. I like pineapple on pizza. I'm making noise. I like that. Bungling. Bungling. Not bungling. Bungling. It's a difference. Bungling is the act or fact of carrying out a task clumsily or incompetently. So me attempting to read Thomas Paine's work, I'm bungling it. Oh, I guess it's just bungling. Oh, bungling? There is an sound in it, so it's bungling. Bungling. It's spelled B-U-N-G-L-I-N-G. Bungling. Vinglorious. Vinglorious people are vain, excessively boastful, and have swelled pride. The base word vinglory dates all the way back to the 14th century and means worthless glory. Vinglorious. I know a few people who are vinglorious individuals, and they are exhausting to speak with. I don't really talk to them very often. Vicissitudes. That's a good one. That's just fun to say. Vicissitudes. The change of circumstances of fortune, typically one that is unwelcome or unpleasant. The vicissitude. It's fun to say. Colluminate. Is that right? Colluminate? Colluminate. Calumniate. To make false and defamatory statements. That's very similar to the other one I just did. Where'd it go? No, not harangue. Oh, calumny. It is the same thing. It's just the verb. Calumniate. Calumniate. Oh, there we go. Look at that. We're learning. I didn't even realize that. Calumny. Ostentatious. Ostentatious. I just wrote that down because it's a nice word. Oh gosh, I have a whole chunk of them right here. Amorous. Ceriglo. Blazon. Sordid. Subterfuge. Provisio. Viceroy. Belial. Pestilence. Duplicity. Supplication. Prognosticate. Prognosticate. Oh, prognosticate. That's a good one. Prognosticate. Foretell a prophecy or future event. Or foretell or prophecy a future event. Prognosticate. It's a verb. Prognosticate. Malediction. I'm not going to give you definitions anymore. I'm sorry. I'm just rambling now. Malediction. Obdurate. Perspicuity. Perspicuity. Slavent. Oh my gosh, that one's hard. Posthumous. Oops, not that. Scottish. No, not Scottish. Sottish. I read it as Scottish. Stupefied, with or as if with drink or drunken. You're sottish. I like that. Sottish. What is that one? Slovenly. Slow. That one sounds Russian. A little bit. Slovenly. Slovenly. Messy and dirty. I must have taken these very close to each other. So you could be a slovenly sottish. That's fun. I like that. Ague. Emetic. Torpid. I gotta use these words. Edifying. Not a difficult one, but something I just want to use. I really need to make like a list of these and have them like with me, so I can just pull them out and then try to use one in a sentence or something. Because I tend to use very simple language when speaking, but when I'm writing, I can specifically because I can think of like idea. Like let's say I wanted to think about. Where did that word go? My pizza example. A calumny. Calumny. How do you say it? Calumny? Like I can't really come up with that while speaking. Calumny. But when writing, I can remember it. Harong. What a great word. Harong. That's a word that we should bring back today. Harong. That's the one where you your speeches are violent and extreme. Maybe not violent, but let me look up the definition again, just because I'm right. I just want to make sure I'm right. Harong. A lengthy and aggressive speech. Harong. Harong. He gave it's a noun. How would you use it? Oh, it's the noun and the verb are the same. So he was to give a harong, or she gave a harong, would be the same as that was a harong, or my sister gave a harong, or no, that would be both. That would be both the verb and the noun. I don't know if she's giving a harong. No, that would be. It is a harong. Is that right? It is a harong. My sister gave a harong in regards to pineapple on pizza. There was a harong. No, there was the verb. Was that right? It's been so long since I've done sentence composition. I should get back into it. I like it. I like thinking about this. Anyways, thanks for listening. This ended up just being a great big ramble at the end, but I hope you enjoyed. My next book is going to be, I don't know where it is, I just had it. It's Friedrich Nietzsche's Good and Evil, of Good and Evil? Something like that. I picked it up from a secondhand store, same place I got Thomas Paine's Age of Reason. Once again, it was like $5. And Thomas Paine's, the book I got, Thomas Paine's book is from, the copyright is 1942. Friedrich Nietzsche's version is copyright's like 2000 something. It's from Barnes and Noble, and it looks like it's brand. It looks like it hasn't even been opened yet. There's no creases. There's no bends. It's absolutely pristine. So I'm going to actually start that today. That's why I'm making this, because I want to get these thoughts out. I want to read my next book. So yes. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but if you're still here, this is still the old microphone. It's been a week, and this is the new microphone. Excuse me. This is the newer microphone that I dislike. The old microphone is still in the shop, and it's still being soldered. And I want it back, and I wanted to wait to make videos until I had it back. But I gave it to them Monday, and today is Sunday, and I am itching like crazy. One, just to start my book, and two, because I really want to make more videos. Because like I said when discussing The Age of Reason, I thoroughly enjoy this, and I thoroughly enjoy the company of people of whom I wish to make happy, and by proxy make me happy. So, yeah, okay. I will talk to you, I don't know, I hope to talk to you next time from my old microphone, but I'm not going to be making RPs, so the only thing that will be coming out is maybe like talks on my books, maybe a movie recommendation or something, but because I just don't like this mic for the ASMR stuff. Even as I'm going to go back and edit this, I know for a fact there's going to be me speaking, and then as I trail off, as I often do, it's going to go straight into a dead zone, and then I'm going to be cut off, and then I'm going to start off again, and it's going to be choppy, and it's going to be a lot of dead zones. I'm just going to dislike it a lot, so I apologize for that. Right now, there's nothing I can do about it. As the thing I am doing to remedy this fact is currently being worked on, and it's you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, basically, it's out of my hands right now. So, okay, I have talked far too long. Goodbye.